I like fixing broken creeks. Let the water do the work. A broken creek is an incised channel, a gully. It's down cut and no longer has access to its floodplain. Can't deal with floods, so floods become more severe, the water moves more quickly. The floodplain, which supports a big variety of vegetation, that ceases to be.
The idea of stream incision was a serious aha moment. You know, just the idea that the water that you see in the river actually extends way out on the landscape and it sets your water table.
One of the main challenges that we have in the West are head cuts. So drive down the freeway and look out the window, you'll see erosion, but you'll see these head cuts. And if you don't fix them, they migrate upstream, dropping the water table.
So this head cut is slowly is going to move its way up into this meadow and spread out. And it dries out a lot of the vegetation.
I was trying to understand how we could get these damaged systems back into health. In 1999, somewhere in there, I went to a conference on ecological restoration. I heard someone saying, well, there's this guy talking, and he's talking about fixing eroded creeks on the Navajo reservation by putting little barriers, little stick barriers in the cattle trail. So the cattle who are walking down the trail had to go around these little barriers. And when they did that, the water then would follow that trail that they were making and begin to meander these systems, slowing the water down. I thought, what a cool idea. Because traditionally, you get the machines out, you get the cement out, you get the riprap out, you get all those things out to fix these systems. I said, who is this person?
All erosion is due to running water. So if you can step back a moment and take the time to look at the landscape and how it evolved, how it was formed, and make ourselves think like water. What would water do if it was in sync with the environment? And that's been my approach to stream and wetland restoration. So I developed induced meandering. I used various kinds of structures to cause the energy of the flowing water to erode its banks and regenerate the meander pattern rather than erode the bed and get even deeper and narrower and more eroded.
When Bill first proposed this, nobody believed him. You got to manhandle it. And Bill said, no, let's let the power of water, in this case, a small flood that comes down, hits those structures, begins to turn around, the sediment drops out, you get these point bars, and then grass and other things will start to grow, and the whole system begins to stabilize.
We're doing something to make it better. You see results quickly, it helps people, helps nature. If we want to be prepared, we need to be prepared for drought. All the climatologists say we're headed towards serious droughts.
So the idea for a lot of the work is about getting the snow melt and any runoff from snow or from big thunderstorms or monsoonal rain events to be spread across the valley, across the floodplain, and percolate into the system where the soil can store it, where the plants can use it, instead of having it rush out of the system.
We've lost some of the water table up here, which would spread through this area. But if we can work in here, we'll spread water, especially up high. We're trying to get water there, because then it feeds this whole area down to there.
So it's always been all volunteer. And basically around the 70s, 80s, kind of when Bill got involved, we really took a shift into restoration work. So it's educational as well as restoration oriented, because all of what we do, people are learning what's been done to the landscape, what does a damaged landscape look like, and then how do you heal it.
Path breakers can be difficult people. Bill is not a difficult person. His willingness to teach, to mentor, to explain.
What's happening right here to the stream channel dimensions? Is it good or bad?
He didn't set out to create a movement. So he had had a really productive career in the US Forest Service, where he had been instrumental to getting attention paid to endangered species and to the habitats that supported them. He wasn't very happy in retirement. That was not a good time of his life. And so in trying to meet his own needs for happiness and the things that interested him, the kind of myth now is, that one day he put stone in a bit of creek to help that bit of creek. And it grew spontaneously and dynamically.
For example, the plug-in pond, he gives credit to Dave Roskin, who is really kind of one of the originators. But Bill has developed, just based on his ability to look at the landscape, to create other structures.
So that swale is constructed to lead the water all the way around this head cut and a series of smaller ones, and put the water back on the historic meadow surface. Usually it takes about 4 years for the recovery of the former wetlands. As the upland vegetation dies out and gets replaced by native wetland vegetation.
And we can actually drive over it and we don't do any harm to the rest of the system, yet the water still flows downhill. It's not dammed, there's not a culvert. So it's actually the cheapest way to fix a road. And roads are one of our biggest problems.
As when it stops getting worse, it starts getting better. And that same sediment that you see as an erosion scar is a tool to fix the landscape, either here or somewhere else.
So there's more water in the acequias, there's more water available for wildlife, more water available for the fish in the rivers. I mean, everything works better when you get all the tributaries healthy and functioning. And what's brilliant about Bill's work is that it's cheap and it's effective.
Structures are now named Zeedyks. To Zeedyk a stream is a verb. And yet, this is a man who doesn't really want it to be about him. He wants it to be about the impact of him.
I want it to be about how lots of folks that I work with are already doing the same kinds of things in their own way. And willingness to experiment and push the process forward rather than having a fixed approach and a fixed set of outcomes. I want it to be about a movement or a culture of restoration, if you would.
This movement for wet meadow restoration that we've got going right now is just gaining steam.
Yeah, so an average of 250% increase in wetland cover is way above what we ever dreamed of.
So we mapped the wetlands before the project, and now we're mapping them after. The amount of water on the landscape has just, increased exponentially.
I think what's exciting for restoration in general and kind of the next generation of restorationists is that we're starting to understand systems, both from all the different scientific approaches and the livelihoods that are intertwined with them and the social and cultural issues, where we have enough information where we're starting to be able to be good tinkerers, not bad tinkerers, to go back to The Intelligent Tinkering by, I believe it was Aldo Leopold. So we know enough, and we're starting to understand the interconnections where we can really do good work.
This kind of really cutting edge work. I do international conservation work, and I'm constantly trying to get the international community to adopt a lot of these induced meandering practices.
Is really powerful for people to understand and get their creative juices going about how they could use these structures in their own landscapes.
My head and ears may be shaded, but I'm feeling immense heat from the heat radiating off of the exposed asphalt and exposed earth. So pulling water off the street to freely irrigate street-side trees to shade and cool both street and street-side pathways, we're getting these wonderful shaded corridors, full of wildlife and whatnot, a bunch of little butterflies on the creosote here.
How do you scale this up? How do you overcome some of the barriers? This is the big question.
Centering on the pioneering work of Bill Zeedyk and Rippling Out, this documentary project aims to explore the philosophies, techniques, discoveries, and evolutions of this nature-based lineage of restoration work, learning from people and the natural places in which they co-collaborate with in the greater Southwest and beyond. If you'd like to support this educational docuseries and help the full story to be told, please go to thinkinglikewater.com and find out more.